Hi, I'm John Matthews, veteran law enforcement officer, winery owner, and your host for the podcast version of True Crime and Wine. And I'm pleased that you joined us today for this podcast where we feature the fascinating world of serial killers. Well, we enjoy award winning wine. So, why serial killers and wine? Well, it's easy. I'm the only one in the world that's an award winning winemaker and has captured a serial killer. So it is real true crime and real wine. And in each episode, myself and Brandy Diamond, the popular podcast host of Texas Wine and True Crime, which you can also hear on all of your favorite platforms, joins me each week as we profile some of the most interesting and intriguing serial killer cases from all around the world. Well, enjoying our favorite glass of wine. I've got my favorite Casara wine today. It's our Dolcetto, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So pour yourself a glass of Killer Cabernet or Murderous Merlot and join us for this podcast version of True Crime and Wine. In this episode, we're going to take a journey, a profiling journey into the life and crimes of Alexander Pichushkin. Yes, we're going back to Russia for this one. A serial killer who was playing a game, attempting to fill in each of the 64 squares on his chessboard. Now I want to welcome in my co-host, Brandy Diamond. And Brandy, this is a serial killer who is playing a game of chess. So what does that kind of tell us when we start to profile? Because that's what you and I do when we start profiling a chess-playing serial killer.
So, John, the first thing I think about is you have a thinker. We're going to be talking to somebody who plans ahead, who knows what his next step is going to be, right? In a chess game, you're always thinking a step ahead on your next move.
Yep.
And very maybe organized, we'll see, or maybe a little disorganized. But yeah, very interesting. You've got a thinker, you've got someone who's planning ahead, you've got someone who wants to fill up all of the squares. So very strategic serial killer.
Yeah, certainly it does, lend itself to an organized killer. And how gruesome is it that he wants to fill every square on the chessboard with a different victim? I mean, when he's
Yeah,
starting
absolutely.
out, he's already got a huge victim count in his head. Well, I think it's going to be a great show, and that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. Hey, Brandy, glad that you're back with me again and another episode of True Crime and Wine. And today we're going to look at the fascinating life and crimes of Alexander Pichushkin. So we're going back to Russia. As you know, we don't
Yes.
just stick with serial killers here in the U.S., we go all over the world. Well, he was born in 1974 in the Soviet Union and raised by his mother in a two-bedroom apartment right off of Bitska Park. His father left before age 1, so he really never knew his dad. A lot of times we talk about the influence of the mother or the father.
Yeah.
And initially, he was described as sociable, but at age 4 had a head injury. He fell off a swing and hit his forehead. Some of the doctors speculated there might have been some damage, brain damage, and maybe that damage led to aggression and poor impulse control.
Mm.
So, starting at age 4, maybe a couple of signs.
Yeah. So I wonder if they were diagnosing this. I think back and just were there signs early on? Was it just the way the frontal cortex looked? Maybe in an X-ray? And it's interesting because do hear now about, brain injury, and we're going to talk about that later, and how it can change personality. I mean, I covered a case, John, where a young man had killed his entire family, and he had suffered a head injury in a football game several weeks before that. So I think there is probably something to it, but yeah, just
And we
interesting this happened at such a young age.
Yeah, and I've talked to researchers that are looking into right now the correlation between TBI, traumatic brain injury,
Mhm.
and serial killers. We always
Yeah.
say it's a combination of nature and nurture, but maybe there's a medical component that's in here also. So we certainly know that up to age 4, he seemed to be a normal child. After that injury where he fell
Hmm.
off the swing, violent outbursts and anger. And it certainly
Wow.
manifested itself during his adult life. From 1992 until 2006, he was convicted of 48 murders, 3 attempted murders, and he claimed that he killed over 60 people because, again, his goal was to have a victim on every square of his chessboard. His first kill was in 1992, and it was his classmate.
Mm.
And then we have one of these strange lapses in time that you and I have talked about.
Yeah.
About 9 years, we couldn't tie him to any murders. But as you know, serial killers don't usually turn it on and turn it off.
Right.
Um, so maybe there's even more victims than what he's claimed, right?
Or even in those 9 years, maybe there were other, maybe he was doing other things, right? Maybe not necessarily murders, or planning, or kind of, or it's festering, right? The urge and the need. And maybe something just changed in his life. We find that too. So, what would have
Yep.
been going on for those 9 years? But it does resume, John, in 2001. Interesting, because around Russia's death penalty, right?
Right. So did that have an effect on it?
True.
We don't know. Was he that thoughtful? Was he that intelligent and knowledgeable going, all right, now I can't get the death penalty for anything I do. So I'm going to go ahead and start committing it. That doesn't seem
Interesting.
like the normal psychology of a serial killer. But as we kind of go through here, we see, like most serial killers, he does evolve. There are different phases to his life and different phases to his killing. But let's kind of start off early. He was after that fall off the swing as he went to school, he was transferred to a school for children with learning disabilities. And we find out later wasn't really learning disabilities, it was more his behavior, his violent outburst, his anger toward people. They bullied him severely, which increased his level of anger. His maternal grandfather, though, kind of looked at him and said, I don't think he's mentally challenged from a developmental standpoint. And he taught him how to play chess, where he excelled. And so
Mm,
that's where this chess playing comes in, is that he
yeah.
taught him how to play chess, and he found out that he was a very intelligent, but maybe this injury was causing these
Mhm.
violent outbursts. Um, and like you mentioned, what's the reason it kind of turned back on the murders and everything after a 9 years lapse? Well, we know that his grandfather died, and that
Mm,
caused him deep emotional pain. And like we've seen with a lot of people, when they lose a significant person in their life, their mother, their grandparent, the one that they kind of looked up to. So you can see there might have been friction with his mom. His mom said, "You're emotionally,
yeah.
disabled. We're going to send you to a special school." Where his grandfather realized, no, no, you're highly intelligent,
Mhm.
and let's try to nurture that while working on your anger. Well, after his grandfather died, he turned to very heavy consumption of vodka to
Mm,
cope with his life. So now we've got a precipitating event, the death
yeah.
of the grandfather, and he's turned to self-medication for his fits of rage.
Yeah, and it's like kind of like you said, the grandfather took the time to invest time in him, right? And
Yep,
so maybe he never got that from his mother. Maybe as a mother, you're trying to figure out why is your kid angry, and really the grandfather focused on what he was good at. And
right.
so but we definitely see this with other cases, Ed Gein being one of them, of a
I
death
thought of that
can
too.
yeah, a death can really grief is powerful. It can absolutely mess with the psychological balance of the mind. What's reality, what's not reality. And it comes in all different forms. So he chooses to use alcohol, which then, turns to other things. So
Yeah, no, I bet there's a number of serial killers that you and I have covered over the first two seasons here where we see a death, a traumatic death of a loved
yes.
one is really, really pushes that evolution forward. From all accounts, though, except for his fits of anger, he lived in the same apartment from the time he was one until the time of his arrest. He really didn't have a steady job, you might say. He worked in a supermarket and was a clerk and, stacked shelves and stuff. We know he owned a cat. We know he had a fish tank and
Mm,
he collected pins. He had really no career ambitions. People really described him as ordinary. And so we don't see a lot of those precursors when we start looking at, okay, let's take the background. Does this fit the background of a normal or what we call a normal or
yeah.
stable, secure, serial killer, right? The
Well,
substance abuse,
he's being described by neighbors as calm, right?
right,
And that an ordinary person owns animals, has
right.
be able to show some sort of affection. We're covering people who've killed animals, right? And so you have someone who, and then a job, working, and then consistently living in the same apartment. So someone who might be, well, this also takes me to then someone who likes maybe not doesn't like change so much. Maybe they like the consistent life. Maybe he's comfortable in this area. So maybe we'll get into that with some of his crimes. But yeah, very different than some of the people we've looked at in the past.
And do you think his mom maybe saw the rage in him, but other people's didn't? Maybe he kind
Absolutely.
of disassociated a little bit of a loner, a little bit of outsider. So maybe that rage
Absolutely.
never manifested itself to other people, right?
That's right. Yep.
But when we go down the list, okay, certainly we know he was a substance abuser, heavy drinker after his grandfather passed away. We don't see any sign of any abusive family relationship. He probably was not happy that his mother put him in a special school. So maybe he's looking around those long lines. Mental health issues, I really don't think so. I think the grandfather maybe hit it on the head and found what he was good at. And we know that he was intelligent, but we know he did have that injury.
Yeah.
So a couple of the boxes, but certainly not as many. Some serial killers that we've covered, I'm like checking every
Yeah.
box, right? I've got my
Right.
little list at my desk and I'm going, well, Brandy, this guy's not going anywhere because he checks every box. So,
Yeah. Well, and it's also, we look at, and I know we've said this before, but not all serial killers come from bad backgrounds, and they all didn't have really bad childhood. So, it's always that something, like you said, the nature versus nurture of when it comes together and something then triggers. But this guy, John, did have a sinister hobby.
and maybe that's why his mother knew about it, maybe, right? So she knew
That's
about
right.
his anger and his outbursts. Maybe she knew about some of this prior to his arrest, where the
Mm,
outsiders, right, the neighbors, the other people,
true.
simply didn't see it. He did videotape threats to children. He idolized, this is somebody we're familiar with, the Butcher of Rostov. Remember, we did a
Yep,
case on that. He killed 52 people, the Butcher of
yep,
Rostov, and Alexander idolized him. And he
yeah.
said that he aimed to surpass him. So I don't know if that's where the
Mm,
64, squares on the checkerboard come from, the chessboard. I don't know if it's a combination that he knew the Butcher of Rostov did 52, 62 squares on a chessboard. That's my goal, is I want to do 64 murders. But it's really strange that somebody says, I idolize another Russian serial killer, and my goal is to surpass him. He really
yeah.
had no interest in sex or any type of relationships. And folks really described him, again, solitary, a loner, maybe a little rough around the edges, probably didn't have the
Mm,
social skills
yeah.
for a relationship that we would think of, and a heavy drinker and a heavy smoker. So there was that dark side to him.
Well, yeah, and I also think the no interest, he was bullied, probably didn't have, or is there something to that of not being able to have an emotional intelligence connection with people, which is why he came off rough and crude and just not socially, like you said, just not socially developed.
Yeah, and not looking to have any type of long-term
Yeah.
relationship with anybody, whether it be a friendship or anything else, which is manifest itself in this very first kill. In July 27th, 1992,
Mm.
his best friend, he went to the park with him. He played chess with him. They developed a plan together to kill 64 people and fill in every square on the chessboard. When
Oh,
they go to the park he literally lived a couple blocks from, one of the largest parks in Russia, surrounded by huge apartment complexes. So they walk over to the park to play chess every day, and they devise this plan that together they're going to kill enough people to fill in every square in the chessboard. So July
okay.
27th, they go over there, and his buddy Mikhail gets scared. He backs out. He says, I'm not going to do this. I thought this was a fantasy. I thought this was just a game that we were playing. I didn't know you were serious.
Ugh.
And Alexander strangled him in a fit of rage. We've already talked about these fits of rage, and threw him into a sewer
Ugh.
right there in the park. They never found his body. But on July 30th, he was reported missing by his family, and they said the last one he was with was Alexander, and the police arrested him and questioned him. And they
Huh.
said, was he your best friend? And he said, yes. Did you meet him at the park? And he said, yes. And we played chess. And then I went home. I
Ugh.
never saw him again. The police had no body, no evidence, no witnesses, and they had to let him go. So he
Oh
got
my
away with
gosh.
his first murder, a murder of his best friend. So when we start talking about that missing social connection,
Yeah.
when we start talking about that missing relationship, it really, really comes home now in the murder of his best friend.
Well, and no regard, right? Like no just because he wants to back out. I thought to myself when I first was looking at his first kill, I thought to myself, did he kill him because now he knew what he was going to be doing and he didn't want to leave anyone with what he was going to be doing? So that was the first thing I thought of, is he backs out, he then wants to kill him because he knows what he's about to do.
He's
So
a
that's what,
potential witness at
yeah,
that
a
point,
potential
right?
witness to his future crimes, or, you know, at
Yeah.
least an accomplice of sorts. But I mean, to completely lash out like that, right? Immediately, and kill him and then throw him in a sewer. And that had to think to myself, how come they never found the body? Maybe it led into a bigger body of
It did,
water.
yes. Yeah,
Okay,
no,
okay,
it
okay.
wasn't a sewer like, you know, you'd think with
I
a
see.
manhole cover. It was an open, it was more like a canal
Ah, okay.
that then flowed out of the park. And
Got it.
we're going to see this as part of his developing MO for
Mhm.
body disposal, because he went through a period where that's how he was disposing of the bodies, was through the sewers. He also
Wow.
used wells, and the wells flowed down eventually into the sewers. So he already, again, a thinker, a planner, an organized killer. They obviously had thought about the murders at length.
Mhm.
I guess his best friend, when he said, I thought we were joking. I thought we were playing a game. I didn't think you really wanted to kill anybody. I can't kill a person. Ends up
Wow.
being his first victim.
Mm. Well, this is where that 9-year hiatus comes in, John, because he doesn't do it again until 2001. Was there any guilt there? I don't know. Probably not, because I would love to hear your take sometime on guilt and serial killers and conscious, and if they ever
Usually,
feel any of
honestly,
that, you
yeah,
know?
usually, honestly, one of the things we see, no empathy, no remorse, right? So
Hmm.
guilt usually doesn't play any part of it at all.
Okay.
They may feel bad about a part of their crime because it wasn't perfect. You know, we've heard that before.
Yep.
I only commit perfect murders, or the only murders I'm going to admit to are perfect murders. So, yeah, there's
Interesting.
usually no remorse, no empathy, no feelings like we would usually have. And again, we don't know if there's other victims during these 9 years.
Yeah.
You could say, well, maybe he waited to what Russia rescinded the death penalty. I don't know if the urges that these killers have would be put on ice for 9 years.
Mm.
But what we do know is in May of 2001, he again went to the park. He was again playing chess, and apparently that was part of his evolving MO now. He would find someone to sit in the park and play chess with him. On this day, it was a 52-year-old man. After the game, they invited him to take a walk. And he says, "Hey, come walk with me." And fine. This is an unassuming kid that I just played a chess game with, right?
Mhm.
They go for a walk. They walk into an isolated area. He pulls out a bottle and says, "My dog died recently. Let's do a toast to my deceased dog." Pulls out a
Okay.
bottle of vodka. They drink a toast. He then strikes the victim in the head with the bottle,
Mm.
killing him, and then drags his body and throws him into a well. So obviously, from a geographic profiling standpoint, he knows the park well.
Yep.
He knows where these wells are. He knows where these canals are. He knows where the sewers are. He knows how to call the victim from the herd. How many times we talked about that? Serial
Yeah.
killers are experts at luring people, at
Mhm.
calling them out of the general public. And he does this with a 52-year-old man
Mm.
and then throws him into a well.
You know, John, I find it interesting that, like, probably some of the best times in his early life were playing chess with his grandfather. And you have him now starting his murdering sprees in that way. It's very interesting.
Do you think maybe he was looking for power? Do you think when he played with his grandfather, he felt a value? He felt a pride in what he was doing,
Oh, for
and
sure.
maybe trying to get some of that back, but he doesn't feel the same
Yeah,
value of winning a chess game with a stranger. And so he's looking for anything that'll give him power and control in his
I
life.
know. I know. Such a good observation. It's so crazy to me that probably some of the good feelings he had is now how he's setting up his victims. Very interesting. Very
Yeah,
interesting.
no, fascinating. So, from a profiling standpoint, we really don't have a lot of victimology. We know that he killed his best friend. We know that he killed an acquaintance, right? Wasn't a
Mm-hmm.
friend, wasn't a stranger, somebody he played, chess with. We know that his weapon of choice, at least right now, we've got 2 killings, and both of them were killed with a vodka bottle. So he doesn't have a gun, doesn't have a fancy knife. But can you imagine the rage to kill
Oh,
somebody with a bottle?
yeah, and you either can hit them the right place the first time because you can kill someone with a bottle with one shot, but sometimes you have to hit someone over and over and over again in order to
I'd say
kill them with a
most of the
bottle.
time. Yeah.
And again, it's like celebration, right? Like it's a way you're pulling it out to cheers the celebration. But it's so cunning, right? And not exact, and he knows that's not what it's for and what he's about to use it for. So, very interesting choice so far.
I couldn't help but think of the soap maker of Correggio.
Mm,
Remember the woman that we did that made tea cakes out of the
y-
bodies and soap
yes.
and with the perfume? Because right before her kill, what did she do? It was a celebratory glass of wine.
Yes.
When I started doing research and going, he'd offer them a drink to
Mhm.
toast something or celebrate something. I'm like, don't drink it. Don't drink it. It's going to be your
Yes.
last.
And then she would enjoy people enjoying her tea cakes, knowing she had used blood and whatever else from her victims. And it
Yeah.
was it's such a mind game, right? Such a power control. John, one other
Well,
thing you
but see
just
that's
yeah, go ahead.
exactly right. No,
Yeah.
it is a mind game and power and control. So that's why I go back to, do you think he didn't get the satisfaction of just playing chess like he did with his grandfather, and he was looking to fill in something?
Right. Something's missing that he's and the power and the control thing. But here's another thing I thought of when we were just talking about that. That's his comfort zone. That's his
Yeah.
he's comfortable by a chessboard. He's comfortable playing with someone. He's getting them to trust him. So very fascinating. I think we
And
could
is he
talk about that
playing
all day.
is he playing a game with them? Yeah, we could just talk about this the
I
rest of
know.
the show. Is he playing a game with them? You know how
I
you're
know.
always thinking 1 or 2 moves ahead. You know what you're gonna do. You know
Mm,
what your plan is. You're trying to think, well, if he does A, I do B. If he does C, I do D. Is it the same thing? Is he in his mind maybe playing a chess game with real people where he is the one that's thinking steps ahead, and that gives him
mhm.
power and control, right?
Oh,
So, very
100%.
fascinating, fascinating.
100% fascinating.
Yeah. So just going down kind of the MO of the serial killer, we don't see sex involved. We don't see cannibalism, disposal of bodies. Okay. We're starting to see a pattern that he knows the geography and he knows where to get rid of them. And certainly his comfort zone is the park. And we see that he goes through a couple different periods here where he's evolving, and
Yeah.
in one of his periods from 2001 to 2005, they kind of called it, authorities later nicknamed it, the sewer period. He killed 33 people during the sewer period
Mm,
and wounded 3 others. They actually survived the fall or the attack or
yep.
drowning, and actually made it out to make a complaint. But maybe didn't come forward to the police, worried about what may happen.
Mm,
But all of his victims, whether he played chess with them or not, he approached him in the park and he offered him a drink. Brandy, don't let
wow.
anybody offer you a drink.
Yeah, definitely not in a park. All right.
Or a
So,
boutique, right? I'm starting to
yeah.
get worried about
Oh
this.
gosh, John. Now I'm going to be looking at everything I eat and
Come,
consume and bathe with.
come to our winery. It's nice. It's safe. Great wine. All right. So just I'll recap, just what we know about the first couple victims. A lot of them were folks that he met in the park. Some were elderly, at least older than him. Some of them were homeless, we know. We know that he offered him a drink. That was his lure. Remember we talked about marrying murderers? And the
Yeah.
woman would go in and lure the victims over to the van where the
Yep.
husband would be waiting with a gun or a hammer to get him in the van. He would strike his victims with a bottle, or he started carrying a hammer. So
Okay.
maybe he found out that the bottle didn't work. Like you
Mm.
said, it's hard to kill somebody with a bottle, or
Hard.
it takes several
Yes.
strokes. So he started carrying a hammer, but then he really started getting into the sadistic side of serial killers, and he started impaling their skulls with either the bottle he killed them with or sticks that he found at the location, and then
Mm.
would toss them into the sewer or into a well, hoping they would simply float away. On each episode of True Crime and Wine, we feature one of our Casaro Winery brands. And it's just fitting that I share with you what I'm enjoying today. And it's a glass of our Dolcetto. The Dolcetto has a great aroma on it. And it's a dry red wine. So, Dolcetto, you might think it's sweet. No, it's a light bodied, dry red wine with great aromas of fruits. And it's wonderful with a wide variety of dishes. I made it so that my red drinkers would have a lighter red that they could enjoy during the summer. But obviously, this Dolcetto you can enjoy all year round. So it pairs great with a variety of dishes. The aroma is absolutely wonderful. And as always, you can get it at casarowines.com. You can order it. We'll ship it right to your house, and you can enjoy a great glass of Dolcetto while you're listening or watching to True Crime and Wine. Salud.
Okay, John. So we're going to start seeing things look a little different for this guy from October to 2005 to June about 2006. Escalating violence, evolving MO. They called this the open period for him. And at this time, there are 13 murders, and 10 of those are from the same complex he lived in.
Yeah, so I mean, he's getting bolder, right? So we
Yeah.
see, these serial killers evolve. We talk about it each week. What we see here, he's getting bolder. He's taking victims from his very own apartment complex. Now, you got to remember, the park is one of the largest parks in Russia. Think of like Central Park in New York,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you've got surrounded with buildings, many apartment buildings, businesses. So he's got a large victim pool. He's getting so bold, though. He's actually picking victims. Maybe he passes them in the hallway. He sees them out front, and then he sees them at the park. And hey, would you like to sit down? Would you like to play chess? Oh, I recognize you from the apartment. I was just walking. You want to join me? So he's becoming bolder. He's also becoming bolder in his body disposal. Now, you got to remember, by October 2005, he's 34 murders into his killing spree. He knows exactly what he wants to do, exactly how to do it. He's almost perfected his crimes. And during this period, he's learned to attack the victims from the back to get less blood on his clothes. Like I said, he used a bottle or hammer to incapacitate him and to kill him. And he's evolving even more with the post-mortem kind of cruelty to the body, dehumanization, if you will, by pushing a vodka bottle into the hole in the skull that he created with a hammer. So we see him more out in the open. He's no longer throwing the bodies down wells or in canals or in sewer. He's leaving them out, which means he's almost daring the police, hey, come find me. It's been all this time. We're 30-something murders into it. and you guys still don't know anything.
Well, and John, I thought to myself, hammers, I mean, that's messy. Like
Yeah.
bludgeoning someone with an instrument is messy. I mean, you have to put the force of hitting and then you pull back and then you hit and then you pull back. So blood is everywhere. And I am kind of surprised we haven't heard anything about people coming forward and seeing blood in the park, on trees, on leaves. Nothing
He
pointing
must he
towards
must have
this.
got it on his clothes, right? Because he
I mean,
specifically said, "Hey, I started
yeah.
attacking people from behind because when I attacked him from the front, the way that he struck the victims, it was very messy, especially when you're recoiling, right? The
Yes.
blood, especially after the first hit, you now have an open wound, a gaping wound. So he's learning, he's evolving, and
Mm,
now it's more of a blitz attack, a sneak attack, and he's really torturing the bodies post
yeah.
mortem now. So certainly we see an evolution of this serial killer.
Well, he's luring them, right? With the, like you said, with the vodka and then getting them in secluded areas, but he's kind of doing this in his comfort zones at his own
Yep.
apartment complex where he's living. He's comfortable with the bludgeoning. Maybe it's a little quieter than a gun. He is in a park. You don't want to raise any kind of, he's trying.
Well,
And I
there's
also think to myself, are there people walking in this park? And then when he's at the apartment complex, where are they walking to? So it's very interesting. He's kind of playing in his own playground.
Well, and with the way gun laws are in Russia, he probably doesn't have access to a gun.
Ah, thank you. Yes,
So,
pointing that
he
out.
doesn't
Yes.
have a weapon. Probably could have a knife, maybe
Knifings.
experimented at some
Yeah.
point, but doesn't like that. Certainly his MO, what works for him is bludgeoning people with a
Uh-huh.
hammer or a vodka bottle.
Uh-huh.
So we know his MO is evolving, but he's still doing the basics, right? He's luring them into isolated areas with vodka, with cigarettes,
Mm-hmm.
coming to play a game of chess, maybe just played a game of chess. He's got that little bit of trust built up. Or
Yeah.
on several times, he did say, "Oh, come walk with me. I'm going to drink a toast to my dead dog. He's buried over here. Let's go to his grave. We'll drink a toast together." So you can see why victims would go with him, especially if these people were homeless, if they were elderly, or if they
Yeah.
trusted him, but he always would take him to a secluded area. So it must have been a park that was so big and had so many secluded areas. He didn't
Uh-huh.
care about being seen with his victims out in the open. He would cull them from the herd and then kill them.
Uh-huh.
And he said his victims never resisted because he never let on to it. Maybe he learned from that first one, right? His best friend that he killed. Hey, let's
Yeah.
go kill together. No, I'm not going to do that with you. And then it's a knockdown, drag out fight where he kills his best friend. So maybe he's learned.
Interesting.
And so now his victims aren't resisting. They have no idea that this guy that they just played chess with, or just drank a toast with, or are drinking vodka or smoking cigarettes with,
Yeah.
is going to hit him in the back of the head and kill him.
Yeah, very trusting, very convincing, very manipulative. And people seem to like him. I mean, at least people, well, and if you're dealing, if you have homeless or if he's targeting, drug addicts in the streets that he's seeing or alcohol, I mean, he could just be seeing people drinking and takes advantage of that, knowing they're going to say yes, right? Willing to go with him for a free booze, right?
Like
So
married murderers, right?
that's
The
right.
the young girls, were offered sex, or they were offered drugs, or they were offered alcohol, and they went willingly.
Yeah.
And they didn't have problem recruiting the girls, all the way up to the van when the girls might have realized what was happening, but by that time it was too late. So he's
Yeah.
got this down. Now, in the early kills, like I said, he threw them into sewers and wells. We do know a couple people did survive the fall and got away. I thought was interesting. One of his victims was actually a pregnant woman, and I can't help but think maybe she was fighting for her unborn baby, but she actually
Yeah.
made it out. Later, after the 33rd, 34th victim, he would just leave the bodies out where he killed them. Basically, they were still in a secluded spot, but in the open, challenging the police, find him and tie it to me. We know that he had a hammer. We also know that at different points, he used a crowbar and a fence post, probably things that he found right there in the park. And he picked it up and he said, okay, I'm going to use this. And we do know, and this is common with serial killers, that after he killed some of the victims, that there was necrophilia involved. So he would kill some of the victims. He would insert bottles or sticks into their skulls where he hit them. And with some of them, he would have sex before he just got up and left back out through the park.
Okay, so he's interested in the sex, just not with people who are alive. And so maybe that is that, because I thought it was very interesting when we started talking about how he had no interest in those things. That's sometimes what we don't typically see. We see a lot of this sexually motivated, right? And some of it is for power and control over the sexualizing of someone. And so with necrophilia, again, Ed Gein, the want and the need for it, but not able to emotionally attach yourself to anyone who's actually speaking
Alive.
to you or talking to you.
Right.
Alive, right? So, yeah, very interesting.
Certainly a totally different perspective, because from everything we know, he did not have any relationships when he was younger, wasn't interested in it. And like you said, bringing up Ed Gein, certainly those desires manifested themselves with a body that he could totally control and totally possess.
So when we get to the profiling, we've already, we're establishing that his comfort zones are the park. He lures them, isolates them. He has his weapons of choice. He is now leaving them out in the open, not putting them in a sewer. Is he wanting, I always ask you this, and it's always no, they don't want to be caught. But, why are they then taking that chance to be caught if that's not the intention? But anything else that we're seeing?
Part of the game.
Part of the game.
Part of the game.
Okay.
And he's a chess player. So he thinks he's better than everybody, right? He thinks he's better, that he's smarter, that he's a thinker, that he's planning. He's obviously a very organized killer, right? Because he's intentionally bringing items to lure his victims, the vodka, the cigarettes. He's building some type of bond, relationship, trust with them. He's isolating them in areas where he knows he's not going to be found. He then kills them and tortures them or has sex with them after they're dead. So he's got it all planned out. This is a very organized killer, and a killer that's really leaving a trail of physical evidence, but nobody's onto him yet.
Okay, so let's talk about the victims, because they have been a little sporadic. So even though he's being organized, who he kills I don't know if there's really any organization to that.
There's not a pattern. You're exactly right. So many times we see these killers and they have a very, very specific pattern, right? White, female, brunette. They know exactly what they want. They know the victim. Their victims are going to look like their mother. Okay, they're going to be the same height, the same weight, the same eye color, skin color, hair color. So many serial killers have very, very specific victims. Ed Kemper, Berkeley, female, co-ed, walking on campus. So we kind of go down the line. Married murders we've talked about before. Young girls, young women. There was only one guy in that whole string of murders, and that was simply ancillary to the crime. Somebody that they just killed and literally disposed of immediately. So usually victimology helps us. In this case, Brandy, it's all over the map. It's all over. I look at it and I go, oh my gosh, you got a white male 18, a white male 52. You have a white female,
Mm.
19, who was pregnant. She's the one that actually survived the bludgeoning and the fall in the well and climbed out. You have a male, 63, who is an ex-cop, and he was left in the open. So that was a sign to me saying, here's one of your own, and you still can't
Wow.
catch me. A white female, 48, and it was a co-worker of his, and then a white female, 36, was kind of his final kill, but all over the map. Men, women, I'd say, 30s, 40s, 50s, and older, some homeless, some retired. So yeah, he did not have a fixed victimology. We know that most of the 48 confirmed victims, and again, he said he killed over 60 because his goal was 64. Well, I take that back. In the testimony, he actually said once he filled in the chessboard, he was going to keep going. He was just going to start another game.
John, I thought about the fact that you have different characters on a chessboard. They're
Yeah.
not all the same and they all don't look the same. Could that have been any thought of like who he was targeting, why, and where did they fit on his chessboard?
I think you're spot on. I think this was an amazing game that he was playing in his head that
I agree.
only he knew about. And I think that would be an explanation for why the victimology is all over the place. Did he see that 63-year-old former cop as a king or a knight? Oh, did he see the younger females as pawns or maybe the queen? So I think there was this game that only he knows that he was playing in his head.
Totally
We do know
agree.
that a lot of the victims were elderly, homeless, vulnerable, but we know some of them were acquaintances, women, right? Co-workers even, and 10 of the 48, so a quarter of all his victims came from the same apartment on the same street. 10.
I have so many
Quarter of
questions around that. Like, were they ever reported missing at one point? Were people looking for them? Did they put a connection together that these people were missing from the same complex? I've got some thoughts around that. But that's very interesting.
Yeah, I did see some wanted posters and things like that, missing people, that type thing. But until the very end, there was nothing about suspects. It seems like he preferred, though, the known victims, that it was an added pleasure to him. So instead of just randomly picking somebody in the park saying, go walk with me, he'd almost build up that trust or that bond.
Yeah.
And then he'd kill him. And there was no resistance because they trusted him enough to walk with him.
Yeah. Wow.
Absolutely amazing. Now, we do know that some of the survivors did crawl out, like the pregnant woman, out of the well or got out of the canal. And maybe that's another reason why he said, well, I'm not going to throw them there. I'm going to make sure they're dead where I can see they're dead, where I know 100% they're dead, where maybe I have sex with them after they're dead. And then I'll walk away and leave them. So maybe it was as simple as that. You never know how in their head their murders are evolving, right?
Yeah. Such an interesting, I think we're so on to the different characters, the different random victims playing his own game of chess in his mind. It's just wild. And then again, John, the profiling geographically, we already talked about this a bit, but the apartment buildings where he lived, he would take victims from there. That you said the largest park. I think of Central Park. I can't imagine how many murders and assaults are reported in Central Park every single day. And a lot of it is not witnessed because there is a lot of isolated areas. But what else do we know about the geographic? He didn't go far. He didn't.
No.
He wasn't a traveler. He didn't have a sales job like some of the other people we've talked about.
Yeah, like
close
6
to home.
blocks.
Yeah.
6 blocks. His apartment
crazy.
was from the middle of, or from the park. The park was huge.
Wow. Yeah.
2,700 acres, surrounded
Wow.
by apartments with a lot of secluded spots, birch trees, streams, creeks, debris from old buildings and stuff.
Wow.
So it was an absolutely huge park, and that was his playground. I
Yeah.
almost want to think the park was his chessboard. He was
Mm.
moving pieces around the park on the chessboard to isolated areas where he could make his attack, where he could kill the pawn, kill the king, kill the queen. You see what I mean?
Oh
I
my
think
gosh.
very sophisticated game in this killer's head. And that so many of his victims came out of the same apartment building on the same street. It was
Really?
a more challenge to him. He'd pass him on the street, pass him in the apartment complex, talk to him, say hi, may say, if I see you in the park, sit down, we'll play a game of chess
Mhm.
or we'll share
Wow.
some vodka, because he said it gave him more of a thrill to kill somebody that he
Mm.
knew.
Wow. Well, and I also think about the fact, and I think you're so right about that. I do think the park was like his big chessboard and he was placing them where in his own mind. But I always think about when this becomes right, I think of hobbies, where this is a hobby, chess is a hobby, and just playing games. And people, I mean, real chess players probably play chess every single day. And so you think about, is he getting better at his craft? Did he get bored after number 34? Right? Did he have to change something up? Was he, it's just this guy literally, I think, woke up every day and thought, how is this going to look today? What piece am I missing? Where's that going to go? I mean, just unbelievable that he was living a semi normal life, but then the ability to do this to people in his own complex. I mean, he was getting a little bit very close to home. I mean, 6 blocks and this guy's
Making it
never suspected. I mean,
making it
wild,
more of
right?
a challenge, right?
Yes.
Making it more of a challenge. And I think you see that with chess players. I think you nailed it right on the head. If you're a chess player, you want to play somebody as good as you or better
That's right.
so that you can learn, so that you can evolve as a chess player. If you constantly play people that you beat all the time, right?
That's right.
Then you get bored.
That's right.
I think of my daughter playing cards with me. I'm a horrible card player. That is
Are
not
you?
me. I can't think. I don't know. She beats
Just
me every time. She's got to get bored. If you're playing chess, you want a challenge. And so if the
absolutely.
park is your chessboard, and killing homeless people and vagrants isn't turning you on anymore, and you realize that if you know them or build some type of fall relationship with them, you get a bigger thrill. I think you're exactly right. I think it was a constantly evolving game of chess. And what we did discover is he was evolving from in his craft from the murder, because when they went back, they actually found 13 of the bodies got stuck in those wells. They didn't float out into the canals or into the bigger tributaries. Some of them, however, floated as many as 5 miles away. Others
Right.
got stuck in snow or mud or into streams, but every one of the murders was signed with a bottle or a stick inserted into the hole in the head where he killed him.
Well, he's
And
leaving a mark, a visible,
a
he's
sign, a
letting a
signature.
sign. He's letting them know this is the same person that's
Yep,
committing this.
that's
Um,
me. That's
yeah,
me.
that's
I'm the
wild.
chess player, right? I'm the
Yeah.
master. Nobody can beat me. It's my game. And he
Wow.
actually tracked his kills on his own personal chessboard that was eventually recovered in his apartment.
Okay, like he had their faces or their
Yeah, or
names?
names,
Oh
names
my
on,
gosh.
yeah, names on the squares. Yeah, so that he was actually tracking it. We're so happy that you joined us for this episode of True Crime and Wine. And no matter where you heard this, on Spotify, on Apple, whether you watched it on YouTube or any other platform, if you get a chance, leave us a review, give us a like, or subscribe to that channel. We love hearing from you, and we thank you so much for listening to True Crime and Wine. We hope you enjoy each and every episode. Salud.
So June 2006. What do we know?
Well, we know that he goes for a walk with a coworker of his. So remember, he was like a stalker at a grocery store. No real career, throughout his whole life. And it's a female that he goes for a walk with. And she was suspicious, right? I don't know if it was because she worked with him, knew him. She was suspicious. Remember that sixth sense you and I talk about?
Oh, yeah.
That women need to follow, right? If you get that sixth sense about a guy, pay attention to it.
Yeah. It's okay to say no, ladies. It's okay to say no and leave.
Yep. And she was not married and had a son and everything. Mm-hmm. So maybe looking for a connection or looking for companionship or whatever. But those hairs on the back of her neck stood up. She should have just said no. But instead, she left a note to her son and told him, I'm going out with Alexander Pichushkin, and even left his phone number on the note. Pichushkin's.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, at some point, she mentions that during the walk. He doesn't care. So he knows there's a note out there with his name and his number, and he doesn't care. And he still kills her. So was it a circumstance where he had worked himself into a rage where he was going to kill her and found out about it during the act? Maybe she screamed it. I've left a note. It's got your name and number. He couldn't turn back. Whatever the circumstances were, he knew that his name and number were out there. She left it with her son, and he still killed her. They discovered her body in the park June 14th, complete with Pichushkin's trademark injuries, bottles or sticks inserted into the skull. They then started viewing surveillance tape of the whole surrounding area of the park. The police did. They found a metro ticket in her possession, a subway ticket. So they started going to review the subway video. And what do they see? The last scenes of her are walking with him on the subway platform over to the park. So they finally have a victim with a piece of evidence, the subway ticket, and now they've got footage of him and her walking from the subway to the park. And the son, of course, has the note with his name on it.
Okay, well, good. And it's all starting to line up again. And my thought was, is the arrogance so much that he doesn't care about the note? He feels like he's gotten away with so much already. He can somehow talk himself out of this one. That could have been, I think, one of the reasons why the urge is too great to care about that, I guess is kind of what I was saying.
Why? But to me, he's such a thinker.
I know.
Why, if he knew the son had the note, why not go to the apartment and kill the son? Maybe he didn't know exactly where her apartment was. Maybe he wasn't sure. Why wouldn't you go get rid of at this point, he doesn't realize about the metro ticket. He doesn't realize about the camera, but he knows about the son. Why wouldn't he go take him out? I don't know.
Do you think maybe he thought okay, so I'm thinking that probably came out when she started to feel like something wasn't right on the walk. She goes anyway. They're walking, talking. I think something's about to happen or she feels it. And so that's when she says, You better not do anything. I wrote down your name, your number. At least from a woman's perspective, that's when I would release that information to someone.
Right.
Like, you might not want to do this. Somebody knows where I'm at and with you. But I almost wonder, did he not believe her? Is he taking the risk of her just making that up to
Right.
scare
To
him
sa
off a
to
bit?
save herself. What if he had
Yeah,
already hit her? She
maybe he
wasn't
didn't believe her.
unconscious. Yeah. What if she wasn't unconscious? And that's when she said it.
Hmm.
You better not kill me. You better not hurt me because I wrote your name and number down.
That's right.
You're right. He might think she's bluffing.
Hmm.
He might think
Yeah.
that she's absolutely bluffing. Women are going to say and do anything when they get in that situation. I kind of
That's right.
harken back to the highway killer episode that we did earlier when he's attacking the woman and the woman says, I don't care. I love you. This is better than what I've ever had in my life. And he stopped. He stopped the attack. And she says, I love you. I want to be with you. Let's go back to your apartment. This is after he beat her, raped her, choked her, almost killed her, brought her back to life. But she thought of this. And he went,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Puts her in a car to bring her home and she escapes.
I
So
mean, yeah,
whatever you got to
and
do.
you should say anything to get you out of a situation. No doubt about it. But it's just, I do wonder, like, did he think she was bluffing? I guess that's kind of would be one of my first thoughts. But he is finally arrested, and then we get a confession. So this is June 16th of 2006. So what do we know?
He's arrested for her murder. They tie in the video footage, the metro ticket, the note, and all that. He confesses to the crime basically pretty easily and then starts providing details. And then it's as if he was proud of his chess game and proud of what he'd been doing. He then led police to the other crime scenes and
Mm.
and reenacted the kills. These killers have an amazing memory for their kill and what they look like and what they did and how they did it and where they did it. And he went through all of it with the police and even led him to his chessboard that he had been
Ugh.
keeping with his victim's name on it that they eventually logged into evidence. So
Wow.
he was proud. He was
Yeah.
proud of his kills and proud of what he had been doing and simply confessed it all to the police.
So were there, and we talk about that too, like they want to talk about what they've done, right? There's a sense of like proudness and accomplishment for them. But did he, was he a religious guy? Like, did he have a reason for killing? Because sometimes you'll have serial killers or religious killers in general and say, well, the voice in my head tells me to do it, or I kill people because my mother was a terrible mother, and so I kill women because I hated her. What did he have any reason for doing this?
He said it was about power and the power of
Okay.
life and death. And you can see that with the kills. We know that with killers that strangle, it's up close, it's personal. They want to see that person's last breath. He killed these people up close and personal, beat him in the head with a vodka bottle, hit him in the head with a hammer. This was not a sniper from 300
Yeah.
yards away. This was all very personal. He said that he liked deciding whether a victim lived or died. It made him feel like God. We've heard this before. And he said, I kill for one reason. I kill to live. Because when you kill, you really want to live. And so I think what he was trying to say is it gave me power. It gave me a reason to live. I could take this life. I was like playing for God. He said, for me, life without murder is like life without food.
Yeah, that's frightening that someone is walking around the streets thinking that way. He goes to trial, John, October 2007. What happens at the trial?
Yeah, remember I told you he idolized the butcher of Rostov who killed 52, mainly children. And with the butcher of Rostov, they put him in a glass cage to keep the crowd away from him and him away from the crowd. Well, Alexander got the same treatment. They put him in a glass cage just like his idol. They convicted him October 24th, 2007 48 murders, 3 attempted murders, life sentence for all of it, and the first 15 years at a minimum were to be spent in solitary confinement. He said
Oh my
that was
gosh.
too harsh. Again, how these guys think, absolutely amazing. He appealed the verdict in that it was too harsh, lost, and is serving a life sentence at the Polar Owl Colony in the Arctic Circle for the rest of his life. Just kind of to wrap up some of the things that they saw during the trial, because I think it really, his personality came out then. There was no remorse. Remember, you asked about that earlier.
Yeah.
Did he have remorse? Did he have empathy for any of the victims? He actually laughed in court, laughed at the judges. He said, why don't you charge me with more charges? That's where he said he actually killed 60, not 48. He reenacted his kills eagerly before the court. And he said that his kills were heroic, right? He was an organized thrill killer, high intelligence, but maybe that frontal lobe damage from that fall when he was 4 years old played a role in it. He said it made him feel good. He said he felt like God. And, he's just really, really a sick person that was playing his own personal chess game with real people's lives. Now, as we put a cork in this edition of the True Crime and Wine podcast, I want to remind our listeners that you can follow us on our socials at JJ True Crime and Wine, Instagram, Facebook. Everything is out there for you. And you can purchase our Casaro wine at casarowines.com. We appreciate you listening in. We appreciate all of our viewers out there. And we hope you enjoyed profiling these serial killers with us as much as Brandy and I enjoyed being together, drinking wine, and visiting while we're on the show. So I think that wraps up our business for today. And with that, of course, I want to thank my co-host, Brandy Diamond, for joining me on this journey as always, and our producer, Lauren Bedsole, back in the Corsicana Command Center for making this entire show possible. And we're going to see you next week on the newest episode as we present a female serial killer who turned the tables on the men who hired her for prostitution. I'm John Matthews, and thanks for joining us today on True Crime and Wine. Salud.